And none of them leaked it. This was really kind of amazing, and it's amusing because we would read things on the internet, people who would say, I know this for a fact. Lucas will never let Luke get married. Don't ask me how I know, but I've got an inside track. And we're standing there looking at each other. Sure you do, fella. But yeah, that was the story, the idea. It was never leaked. In fact, there were people I know who got to the point where Luke proposed and they thought, okay, she's dead. Gotcha.
And there's some really good sleight of hand with the Young Jedi Knight books that were published before this and take place after it, with Mara being, absent, but her absence never really commented upon because, if she is a part of Luke's life, her presence there or not is just taken for granted at that point. So.
And Kevin and Rebecca did a lot of good tap dancing for that one and pulled it off.
Yeah. So. We're going to shift from media here, from prose fiction to comic books, with Mara Jade by the Emperor's Hand, which you co-scripted with Mike Stackpole, and a short Mara Jade story that appeared in Star Wars Tales #1. Now, was this your first time working in comics?
I had done a 3-part comic book for Marvel back a few years earlier called Star-Lord. They were trying to revive the character. He was sort of an uncomfortable mixture of superhero and science fiction. I was trying to bring it more to the science fiction area, and they did a good job on it. They had full painted panels rather than drawn. And I actually was contracted to do another 3-parter, which they paid for and then never used. So I understand they've revived Star-Lord again over the past few years. So I guess every few years they're going to try to revive him. But that was my first comic experience. I enjoy doing comics. It's very much a different medium because I can show things that I can't, that it would be obvious if you were writing about them. For example, in the Mara Jade by the Emperor's Hand, she fights some bad guys with a distinctive knife in, I think, the second or third issue. And in the next issue, she is at a cantina type trying to track these guys down, and she has put the knife, actually I said have it stuck in the table, but she's got it laying there. It's sort of a thing of, I'm with them, don't mess with me. The sort of thing would be a little hard, it'd feel awkward if you were writing it, but you can include it in a picture with just sort of something people can notice if they pay attention. If they miss it, not going to be a problem, but it's there for the people, sharp-eyed people, to pick up. The problem, the one drawback of comic books is that your typical comic is a specific length. You've got to have X number of pages because of the way the pages are folded and stapled together. If I'm writing a novel and I go 3,000 words over, not a big deal. They just add more pages to the book. But you can't do that, and you can't go under in a comic book. So it adds limitations that can be challenging, but it's fun to kind of work in somebody else's parameters occasionally.
And now, I understand there was, at one point, the idea of doing a comic that bridged Spectre of the Past and Vision of the Future, which you would have worked on with Mike had it gone through. Is there anything you can tell us about that project?
Well, Mike was asked to do a bridge comic series between those two books. The problem was, I don't think actually I was ever going to be involved except maybe as consultant. The problem was nobody had told me about this. So between Spectre of the Past and Vision of the Future is about 6 hours. Not a lot of room to write an adventure. So I think Mike wound up going off on a tangent sort of thing because he couldn't use the main characters because I'd already filled in the whole map on that. If they had told me, I would have left him a couple of weeks. But I don't remember exactly what he came up with, but he found a way to do something that kind of bridged it without having characters be two places at once, which is very painful.
And we bring us to the end of the Bantam line, which concluded with an anthology series, Tales from the New Republic, which, from what I understand, was material that never made it into the Adventure Journal because West End Games went bankrupt before they were able to publish the last final issues. So we have the the collaboration with Mike that you had alluded to before, Interlude at Darknell, where once again you split a 4-part story amongst yourselves. And it's a very, in that 4 parts, it's a very twisty story.
Well, that's the fun part.
So who throws in the twist? Do you guys go back and forth? I mean, how did that story come about?
Typically, I mean, the same sort of thing as we've done with Side Trip. We bounce the ideas around, come up with a story, and then work out the plot twist. I did an outline for parts 1 and 4 and showed where in parts, what he has to do in 2 and 3 to get me where I need to be, and then everything else, however he wants to fill in the rest of it, is up to him. And plot twists, I mean, we both like plot twists, so we're collaborating, bouncing ideas back and forth. I don't remember who came up with which idea, but yeah, plot twists are half the fun of doing that kind of story.
And that anthology also features Jade Solitaire, Mara's story where she gets her own ship after so long. I don't know if you have any recollections about that genesis. It was definitely an adventure journal story.
It was an adventure journal story. I get asked to do Thrawn stories, of course. Mara stories, absolutely. And this was one of those. I wanted to fill in a little bit of the... She's been working with Card for a long time. Has she ever felt like branching out? And I wanted to explore a little bit of, okay, this is her on her own. What might she do? What problems might she come into? Why is she then back with Card and his group? Just again, kind of filling in some of the blanks in the history of the characters.
So that's 1999, and we then don't see another Star Wars story from you until 2002, I believe, with Star Wars Gamer number 10 presenting Handoff, a story that features Mara and Gent, sort of interacting, not really interacting, definitely helping each other out.
Yeah.
What did the 3-year... In that 3-year break, the prequel, Episode 1 came out, a lot of Star Wars activity. But what did that 3-year break represent to you? And then coming back into the fold, how did you find that?
Well, a lot of the focus at that, well, back up, the short fiction market that Adventure Journal had was gone now, and we were just starting into Star Wars Gamer and then to the Insider and such things. So for a while there was kind of a dearth of short fiction market, and the novel market was being taken up pretty much by the New Jedi Order. So there weren't a lot of slots for me to put a story into, and I was working on my own stuff. I'd been offered a couple of the New Jedi Order, and I decided that the storyline was already developed, and I would be essentially writing part of somebody else's story. And I decided I really didn't want to do that. I don't mind writing somebody else's universe. I don't mind taking plot points, but I don't want to just write someone else's story. I've turned down 2 other projects of that same sort for the same reason. I think another reason I would not want to do any of these long series with other authors is that I invariably come up with new ideas midway through a book. And if I'm writing to connect with somebody else's book, I can't use those, or I can't use them without throwing everybody else's timeline and work off schedule. So they offered me a couple of New Jedi Order. I turned them down. They've never offered me a group one since. So it was just, there weren't any markets for what I was going to do. I had my own work I was working on, and then Gamer came along and asked me to do a story, and this was the result.
And unfortunately, Gamer folded, but Star Wars Insider started bringing up short fiction, and it was followed. Actually, yeah, you did this through Star Wars Insider, I believe, because the story title is presented as Star Wars Insider Presents Duel by Timothy Zahn. Real mouthful there. But it was an opportunity for you to do a story with Yoda.
Right.
And it was a very short story, but still.
Well, these actually were written as this was going to be a little booklet that was going to be in the toys. Mm-hmm. So it was I was getting to write the Hailfire droid, the big wheel thing that I always thought was rather cool looking. I joke to people that I don't need a pager or don't need to be online all the time because nobody ever calls a writer up at 8 o'clock and says, we need 500 words by tomorrow. Well, this was a case where they almost did. We need this short story. I don't remember how many words, but we need it by a few days from now. So I can't really say that anymore, but I still do. So it was a chance to play with Yoda, to do a really, really short story, and get it in front of a lot of kids who would rip the plastic off the toy, look at the cover of this little pamphlet, toss it aside, and go play with the toy. But it was a hope.
And it also represented your first foray into the Clone Wars era, which was soon followed by a three-part story, Hero of Carteo, that appeared in Insider 68, 69, and 70 in the summer of 2003, which was really your first prequel era writing, I thought.
Yes.
And what I thought was interesting is that you went with brand new Jedi characters and kind of a brand new setting, and you went back to deal with the Spartite cloning issue in this story. So what was the genesis? What came first? Because it sounded like there's a lot of pieces to play with there.
I don't remember how it came about. I mean, again, most of these are, we'd like you to do a story, and then I just, okay, what story would I like to tell? What characters, what era? I don't even remember if they asked me specifically for a prequel era, or whether that was just, it seemed the thing to do since the prequels were out. It was, again, just a chance to play in a different part of the universe, try some new characters, bring back at least one, the Kin Mandoriana, I believe is in that one, who also showed up in Outbound Flight later on, has been a pain in the butt to the good guys in the background for quite a while. I'd like to do more with him someday. So it was just, we'd like you to do a story, okay, how about this one? And if they say yes, I write it.
Then February 2004 brought a Valentine's Day gift in the form of Judge's Call. This is artwork by Chris Travis, which first appeared online, but is also in the Essential Guide, the Essential Reader's Companion.
Again, well, that's one of those things. We'd like to put something up online, just a little short thing. Would you like to do something? And, okay, sure. Takes a day or two once I figured out what I want to do, to write it out, and it's something, a little extra treat.
And it anticipated the release of Survivor's Quest, and we've got a new piece of art here by Jeff Carlisle of a scene from that book. So now you're finally able to have, Luke and Mara as a couple. Mm-hmm. And so how do you avoid that sort of, I'm using another dated example, a moonlighting curse of now the tension of will they, won't they is gone, and now they're a couple, so you got to present them as a team. And at the same time, you're also filling in a lot of important backstory of history that you've developed from the Throne cycle. Yeah. So if you could speak about that.
Well, I don't usually have a problem. I don't look at it as a moonlighting problem or the unresolved sexual tension type of thing. I look at it as, okay, now we get to see them working as a well-oiled machine. Luke's got certain strengths, Mara's got certain strengths, and they know enough about each other, they work well enough with each other that they can, okay, you're better at this, be my guest, go ahead and do it. You just, fought this whole thing, let me take this one. Just watching them, being able to write them working together with no conflicts, no concerns, without the tension of, is she going to try to kill me as soon as this part is over?
Which still happens in some marriages.
And how will they work when they're really able to work together? How do two Jedi really work together? And that was the fun of doing this one. Also, as you see in the picture, we had the whole droideka, mostly Obi-Wan and Anakin ran from it, at least in the first movie. I thought, okay, let's find a way to kill one of these things. So that was part of it. I want to see these two take down a droideka and do it legally. As far as not doing any trick that you shouldn't be able to do with it.
As a tie-in to this, and I'm not sure what came first, but we had your first Star Wars ebook, Fool's Bargain, where you took the 501st from being an incredible fan organization to being a legitimate part of the Star Wars universe.
Yes. They're at the adult table now, too.
And how did that come about?
Well, that was actually, I backed it up with, in Survivor's Quest, I needed the Stormtroopers, I needed the group from the Empire of the Hand, the things Thrawn had set up. And I asked the editor, Lucasfilm through the editor, can I use the 501st in this? And I had a list of 8 to 12 reasons why I should use the 501st. They're a good charitable organization. I really love Star Wars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I got the response back, this is the fan costume group? Yes. Okay. Okay, great. Never mind the list. I'll just write them. So, I'd been inducted into the 501st at that point and thought this would be a great group to bring in. I should tell you my first contact with the 501st was in StellarCon, North Carolina. I forget which year it was. But I was introduced by a friend. We'd met her, Sherilyn Lambeth, various times at other conventions, and they wanted to escort me to my panels, and Sherilyn assured me these are not weirdos, really, don't worry about them. And as the weekend went by, I guess that was on Saturday, there was also a Klingon contingent. And sometime on Saturday, the Klingons started showing up holding can openers predominantly. I noticed, I said, okay, let's see what the 501st does. I think within an hour, all the stormtroopers were wearing lobster bibs. It was at this point I thought, I could get to like this group.
So after this, in the summer of 2004, you got a chance to use Obi-Wan and Anakin as main characters, again, set during the Clone Wars. This is an Insider 76 and 77, the Guardian of the People story. Had you been wanting to use Obi-Wan, these classic characters that were denied you simply by fact of where your previous works were set in?
Obi-Wan has always been a really interesting character, and I wanted to do more with him. And with the prequels, that area was now opened up for us to use, and I had enough background and characters and everything that I could write a decent story, and of course Lucasfilm was permitting it where they hadn't before. I wanted to do something a little bit off the beaten track of where the main Clone Wars action was happening. So I dropped them on this largely farming area, who are, the only thing we know about the Clone Wars is it dried up our markets, and we're not doing so well economically here as we were when the Republic was running things, and we kind of resent it. And have Obi-Wan see a little bit more of what the common people are going through, not even the ones fighting or getting shot at, but the ones who are suffering off at the edges and nobody's paying any attention to. So that was the genesis of that idea.
Then by fall of 2005, we got to finally explore Outbound Flight. And here's a new piece of art by Chris Trevis of a very important scene in that book.
I got to get this book.
This is one of my favorites. It totally captures the just intensity of Jorah's right there. And you don't usually see Thrawn in this position. And I remember in reading the book, even though I know Thrawn is going to be okay, I was surprised and just like, my goodness, Thrawn didn't anticipate being telekinetically throttled,
From that distance.
So I thought that was an interesting play on the character, too. This felt like it was very much connected to Survivor's Quest. Were they both developed at the same time?
The original idea was they wanted me to do Outbound Flight, and they were going to publish it between episodes 1 and 2, where it fits in the timeline. I started working on an outline, and Del Rey came back and said, we're actually going to postpone this book till the final prequel movie is out. I never did find out why, but I assume just some kind of scheduling thing. So I put it on the shelf, and in the meantime, they came and asked if I would do this Luke Mara story, since they'd done a Han Leia one with Tatooine Ghost. Would I like to do a Luke Mara? And so that was set up to be Survivor's Quest. And knowing that, okay, I've got Survivor's Quest, I've got Outbound Flight, let's see if I can link them. So it's kind of a prequel going backwards and separated by 50 years. Survivor's Quest will come out first, so I can set up some things that will look puzzling that will be answered then, how this happened, how this came to be answered in Outbound Flight. What happens with Outbound Flight, where some of the people ended up, how it got to the situation was in Survivor's Quest. I found it a little bit amusing when I read a couple of reviews that people said, well, Zahn seemed to lose interest in Survivor's Quest because there are some things he didn't answer. Knowing that, okay, Outbound Flight's going to be out in a couple of years, it's all going to be answered then. So yeah, it was very definitely linked. Once I decided to do that, I was doing both outlines together to show Lucasfilm exactly how I was going to link it, what part was going to be where, and all of that.
This was followed in January of 2007 by Allegiance, and here we have a new piece of art by Darren Tan of Mara basically telling Darth Vader that, oh, these guys are with me. It's the Hand of Judgment stormtroopers. And then according to the foreword, or rather the sort of introduction to the book, you make mention that the Hand of Judgment came from your interaction with the 501st, I believe. If you could tell us about that.
Well, we were talking with Alvin Johnson, who founded the 501st at, again, another StellarCon. Those things are really good for story ideas and things. And he was talking about an idea he'd had for a TV series. He was envisioning a large Imperial ship with a whole contingent of stormtroopers and others going around doing various actions and activities. And in my mind, I thought it'll work better if you shrink it down to 3, 4, 5 of them, and then you have kind of a combination of what Zorro, the Incredible Hulk, the Fugitive, where these guys are kind of on the run, but because they can walk around without armor and be not recognized, they are like they have secret identities, put on the armor and suddenly they're stormtroopers, and have them kind of finding problems that have fallen through the cracks of the Empire, since that's what they joined up to give justice and whatever to the people. Find those problems that have fallen through the cracks nobody's dealing with. Okay, we can deal with this one. So the idea sparked out of that conversation, and of course, all of history being there. In any army, even the Nazi army, you had good soldiers who were following orders from people who were following orders from this lunatic named Hitler. But they're good soldiers. They're there. A lot of them probably are feeling they are doing something that's important. Go back to the Roman Empire, same thing. We're bringing peace to regions that have been fighting each other for centuries or whatever. We are going to take them both over, and they don't get to fight anymore. Okay, they pay tribute to Rome, but they're not fighting each other and killing each other. So, and you can see the Roman soldiers saying, I brought peace to this area, the Pax Romana and such. So, see the good soldiers disillusioned, kicked out on their own, and that's where Allegiance came from. And then followed by the follow-up.
It was, but in the interim, we had a little visit from Lando Calrissian.
Yeah.
And I'll try not to anticipate the book that'll end this stuff, but you clearly have an affinity for, well, let's just say it, scoundrels.
Yes.
So, Lando seems to be